Good afternoon, and happy Friday. Welcome to Table Talk with Brenda Perryman right here on TV 33, WHPR, Comcast 20 in Detroit. And it's such a wonderful day outside, a wonderful day to be here, a wonderful day to be alive. This particular Friday, it's a little fog, and you could only see a block or two ahead of you, but drive slow, drive carefully. And maybe one day, just one day, I promise you, we might have spring. I tell you, I've been frustrated. But I'd like you to meet my co-host now. We're going to have great discussion today. And my co-host?
I'm Robert Thomas, currently the Vice Chairman of the City of Detroit Board of Zoning Appeals.
Chris Sumraw, Public Servant for the citizens of the City of Detroit.
Darnell McLaurin, Detroit Firefighter, Western District Director for Local 344.
Make sure you guys speak into the mic there now. They're talking to you guys. And is our tradition, we always find out what happened on this day historically in African American life in Detroit from the book written by Mr. Ken Coleman. And today is April 4th, and on this day, in the national semifinal game of the NCAA Division I Basketball Championship held at Ford Field, the Michigan State Spartans defeat the Connecticut Huskies 82-73. Detroit-born Darrell Summers is a member of the Spartans team. Isn't that interesting? Because this is still March Madness. March Madness has gone straight into April, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Now, the Connecticut Huskies, is that the same thing as UConn?
UConn.
Yeah.
Right,
Yes,
right.
Put us out this time, too.
I
Absolutely,
know. It
absolutely.
seems like history
Payback.
has repeated itself in some kind of way, but had a different outcome and all. But we'll get to the NCAA soon. I'm not going to talk the politics of it, but I think we'll get into some real good conversations. I can't wait till we get to the social issues today, people. If you want to call in, you can call us at 313-868-0342, 868-0351, or 868-4336. And of course, that's area code 313. And also, there's an app on your phone, and you can watch the show on your phone as you're wherever you may be. And we've had a bit of tragedy. It happened yesterday, the day before yesterday. Fort Hood, Texas, there was a shooting. And four people, including the shooter, was killed, right?
Yes.
Darnell, you were a member of the Marines or what? Army.
Yes.
Maybe you could talk a little to what PTSD is. Do you know what it is?
Yes. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, and a lot of individuals who's been in combat or over stressful situations could possibly suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's not just the military. It's a lot of fields. Police officers go through it a lot.
Firefighters?
Some firefighters. I don't know too many. But no, police officers, especially personnel that's in combat. This individual here, though, was in Iraq, but he was a non-combatant. He was a truck driver. It appears that some of his issues started prior to the military. He was in the National Guard in Puerto Rico prior to coming to America. I mean, not America, but coming to the main states. He was deployed to Iraq. He had served 2 tours over in Iraq, but he was a truck driver, non-combatant. So where his PTSD came from, and he hasn't actually been diagnosed with PTSD. He was being assessed for it, but he did have some other issues.
Well, they said one of his issues, too, was the fact that he didn't get enough leave time when his mother died. And, I mean...
That could play into it, but you have to look at some of the prescription drugs he was taking. Ambien, we know, has some horrific side effects to those. It was a culmination of things, and I believe the start of it was an argument between him and another soldier, which started this whole event.
Gee, I mean, have you ever met anyone who had PTSD? You know, I know that people can get it just in ordinary, everyday life.
Exactly.
Where they just get so overstressed they can't take it, and you really have to be treated for it.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know, one thing that jumped out at me was that he was diagnosed with a post-traumatic,
Well,
but he wasn't being treated.
well, he
for-
wasn't quite diagnosed
He
yet.
was underdiagnosed, so he was the
being
process
assessed.
yeah,
He was going through the
process
assessment.
had began. But
Right.
you know, I would be interested to find out, how fast that process is. We know that there have been a number of tragic events associated with these type of circumstances, PTSD. But how, has the process of actually diagnosing and treating these individuals, gotten any faster? Or is it still something that is kind of lengthy? Or, I would be interested to see, how that actually is in the military or any of the armed forces.
He actually reported a brain trauma incident also.
Yeah,
but they
traumatic
didn't
brain
elaborate.
injury.
But they didn't elaborate on that, so we don't have the full story just yet.
Well, also they said, and this surprised me. I thought that on forts, on the campuses,
Military installations.
thank you, military installations, that everybody could just carry a gun, but that's not so, right?
That's not exactly correct. Most military installations are governed by the states which they're in, but each unit has weapons, of course, but the way that they handle those weapons, there's a process. So nobody just walks around with weapons and bullets.
And they said he got his gun from the same place that the other guy who did the massacre a few years ago got it, and they had not registered their guns. You're supposed to register the gun. He had not registered.
Right. And of course, he had just been there a month, though. He just got the post in a month, in February. So just with weapons, just with animals, they have a certain amount of time period to get those things registered and taken care of. Obviously, he had just purchased his weapon March 1st, I believe. So it wasn't even a full month before this happened, or close to a month before it happened.
And this could be an example of an individual with pre-existing mental disorders that, I mean, once something like this happens, we immediately kind of jump to certain presumptions, and I think PTSD is one of those things we kind of associate with these type of circumstances. But it was mentioned in the different articles that pointed out that it could have been some, pre-existing mental disorders prior to his enlisting or service in the military. So we don't know quite yet, and it'll be interesting to see how that all plays
How
out.
it plays out. You're absolutely right. Isn't it funny? Some of his friends and some people say he was real friendly, laugh all the time, and then other people may say other things about you. So, you're different things to different people, and maybe his worlds collided. I don't know what it was, but why do other people have to lose their lives?
I think one of the things we have to address too, Brenda, is the fact that even outside of the military, if you know someone in your family, friends that you interact with on a daily basis, and you see mood swings, it's possible, depending on what's going on in their lives, they could be having some type of issue. And so everybody needs to pay attention to their family, their loved ones, and coworkers and so on, and get someone evaluated, because he was in the process of getting evaluated. But think about all the people who don't get evaluated and they end up doing the same thing. So we have to pay attention to each other.
And it could have been, he probably went for evaluations a little too late. Sounds like it's undiagnosed, undiagnosed, things. Period. It was probably simmering for a while before this ticking time bomb actually came about.
It sounds more reactive than proactive, and I don't know the baseline that an individual would actually go through as far as their mental health, with regard to entering into service with the military or army or whatever. But I think that somewhere down the line, when someone has the access to a firearm, maybe there needs to be some scrutiny as far as the mental health, and even go further than a baseline, but every so often, incrementally, come back for a re-eval, because circumstances change and people change. And so I think that maybe something like that could have helped in this instance. Again, we don't know the facts as of yet. It's so new and so fresh. But, our hearts definitely go out to the folks, to those individuals who lost, their loved ones. And we're just waiting to see how this plays out.
Absolutely. There's so much that people think they could solve with a gun. But my thing is, and they eventually kill themselves. I said, cut the middleman and just go on and kill yourself.
Exactly.
I mean, because the number of people who are affected, it's crazy. It's phenomenal. it's not just you, it's your family, it's the families of people you've harmed and so forth. It just has a domino effect, really.
I know we're talking out of emotionalism, but this is like a disease. Though. We have PTSD, and
Yes.
you're not thinking,
I know.
that I need to just,
You're right.
or I should kill myself. You having some extremely stressful
Yes.
situations would cause you to kill everybody around you, and even sometimes off yourself.
Right.
So.
Well, the Supreme Court struck down the political donation cap, which really, in my opinion, works kind of against the regular guy who wants to run for office. And it works against the Democratic Party quite a bit also. What do you think?
Well, quite frankly, the Supreme Court has 5-4 decision once again, almost split, opened the floodgates for major donors. Was it a couple of years ago? They with the Citizens United decision,
Yeah.
corporations are now people. Now we have this on our hands
Right.
where we can donate as much money as in our bank account at a campaign or at a person without any checks at all. So it's a devastating blow to the little man, but to someone with a lot of funding and that could be easily influenced with that funding, it's going to go their
It
way.
seems so unfair, though, Robert. It is so unfair that somebody can buy an election.
Well, it doesn't seem it may seem unfair, but it doesn't seem surprising.
Well, it's not surprising, but I wish there was something that could be done about this, because you could have someone, Joe Blow, could get into office and he'd be a puppet, and some probably are, a puppet of other entities. Just based on someone who does a slick commercial for them, and they have the money to continue to play it and send them out with talking points and everything.
Well, don't plan on being overturned over the next 10 to 20 years.
Exactly.
Because Republicans, the last Republican office was George Bush. He appointed Chief Justice Roberts there, young, vibrant Chief Justice or Justice period, and Obama has 3 more years in office now. You would hope that another Democrat will probably come in if you are a Democrat, but they're the ones. This is why it's important to even vote. They're the ones who control and select these justices.
Absolutely, and not only that, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she's going to be retiring soon, and she's a Democrat, so you'll just be replacing a Democrat with a Democrat.
All right. What's interesting to me, though, is 1,700 people gave to the political party, gave the max to the political party, and almost 600 gave to the individual candidates. Who is leading this charge? Certainly not the masses. It's 250 million Americans, and 1,700
Yeah.
gave the max. It's incredible. So we know where the money is going. They want to increase the amount of money that they can give to an individual candidate or to a party to further move their cause along.
Oh yeah.
And I think that it points to show that really who has the loudest voice.
Who has the biggest pocket?
Money
Yeah,
talks.
exactly.
Money
Yes.
talks loud.
Exactly, and so again, this isn't anything surprising. I would have been surprised if it didn't turn out this way, quite frankly. And I think that again, this is an indication of really just how blatant certain things are getting. Maybe in the past things were handled more discreetly, but this is something that is just out in the open, and it's almost as if they don't care.
I hate to say this, but I could see years down the road, if this continues at the momentum it will, we might have riots like they're having in other countries against political parties. We might have coups. I know that sounds crazy, but the fact that the people are losing so much of their voice, the people don't have the same voice they used to have. They used to have a kind of voice.
Well, I think as much as the people may have had a voice, politicians may have had some type of remnant of conscience, and
That's true.
I think that is if it hasn't evaporated, it's evaporating relatively quickly in a lot of different areas. And again, I think it's manifested or is shown by the fact that there is no discretion. There's it's just wanton. It's outright. It's blatant, and it's really as if they could really not care what the masses of individuals think is fair or not or unfair.
Well, everything shifts to partisan politics, though. So you have your Democrats on one side and Republicans on another side, and both of them are on the fringe ends of both parties, deep on the right or deep on the left, and that's what their issues are. They want to kick through their partisan politics instead of coming to the middle and agreeing on certain things, like this issue. Maybe it should have been some type of cap, but maybe it shouldn't have been as low as it was. Maybe they should have found something towards the high ground, but not the max where you can just pour into it as much as you want to. Even corporations can donate to.
Well, I'd be interested to see that if there were funds left over after these political campaigns.
Of course.
So if there were, so what's the need necessarily
to have another one.
to up the amount?
Well,
If every
you can hire
year,
on new people now, and with all this money, you can saturate a whole city with literature, with ads, with people you can put on the ground, and they can tangibly touch other folks and try to sway them to vote a certain way.
I understand, and I think it's more geared toward the select few, the minority or whatever. I don't think that they're really trying to get their message across to the broad folks, the citizens of this country. I just think, again, this is a classic example of how why people are really becoming fed up
And apathetic.
and apathetic as well, because they really feel that their voice doesn't carry as much weight as the next guy's dollar.
And when there's no accountability, I'm glad you said that, Chris, because when there's no accountability, and I'm going to bring it up again, we brought it up before, Public Act 436, it should be anarchy in the streets. Because the will of the people is not being adhered to by the members that they elect to represent them. And so everybody should be in an uproar over this particular issue, over Public Act 436.
Tell the audience again what Public Act 436.
Public Act 436 is the emergency manager bill that was thrown at us by the governor, Snyder.
Yes.
The people voted that they didn't want it. He came back with another bill, which is 436, added appropriations to it, so it couldn't be added to the ballot for a referendum vote. It should be anarchy in the streets. It's not, and as long as we continue to sit down and do nothing, they will continue to do whatever it is they want to do.
And I think there's a build-up for it, but no one hasn't been any action. A decision like this, it's going to take a cycle of elections or two for the people to really feel that their voice is not going to be heard at all. They just totally shut out. When those candidates started spending that campaign money to the maximum extent possible, whoever donates as much money as they want to their campaign, they're going to feel it. Once this underdog that's of another party wins this race that shouldn't have been there, the people didn't vote for him, or they wouldn't have voted for him. But once that's felt, then you're going to see some action.
Well, I think
I
it
hope
should
so.
happen before then. Because people
they gotta
get
feel it.
lulled. They get lulled into a feeling of I can't do anything. I think that people need to be out there. I think they need to be protesting. I just can't understand. It's just like a lot of people who are getting pensions. They got upset. They did go to Lansing, but it needs to be more than that. Snyder does not care about Lansing. Snyder sits up and says, well, we're going to attack your pension. So he started taxing my pension, and I wasn't counting on that. And that's quite a bit of money a month that gets taken out that wasn't taken out. So I had to readjust my level of living. And that's what he is asking of the citizens of the city of Detroit or workers of the city of Detroit to just totally readjust in a bigger way. Don't you think?
I certainly agree. We was just giving some information this week. The cut to the pension workers, or to the city of Detroit workers' pension is 34%, and that's if you agree to it. If you don't agree to
It's
it,
gonna be
I'm going to
upwards
take
of
40%.
But
But hold on. I mean, who does it really affect though?
but that's what
You're talking about Detroiters.
no
Politically,
But
one's
that's a term.
they're not politically. This is a Democratic area. He doesn't care about that.
But
It's
wait a
gonna
minute.
affect
The emergency manager actions affect the workers right now, but the governor's enactment of
He's under-
436 affect everybody in the state.
Yeah.
But also, and I think that I was going to touch on that, Rob. You made a good point that putting Detroit in front of it really minimizes the scope in which it's coming to a city near you.
Yeah.
Because if individuals think for a second that it was a coincidence that Detroit was used as the test case, the large test case here,
For the nation.
for the nation, they're sadly mistaken. So I think it's a scenario where, you know, folks don't care as long as it doesn't come across in my yard
yeah,
yet.
absolutely.
But I mean,
And it gives them time to those areas, those pension plans, whatever there are in certain cities. It gives them time to now self-correct. Maybe we need to look at this stuff before this emergency management or the governor actually acts on it and try to do the same type of thing. They do
Right.
it
And it's going to go countrywide. Just to give you an example, if you look at the police and fireman pension, it's been the actuary report says that it's 96.1% funded. The governor bought in a company that says it's 70%. Well, that unfunded portion is about $80 million that the city owes to that pension system. Well, if you go to Chicago, their pension system is about 28% funded. That unfunded portion is about $100 billion. So we talking about 80 million in Detroit. Next door, we talking about 100 billion. So it's going to move slowly across the country.
Yeah.
Test case.
And they
gonna
will
move.
they will be correcting that too. They're looking at Detroit right now, and they know they're going to have to do something because other states will be adopting the same type of process, similar to what
Right.
the governor pushed through the state of Michigan.
And staying in the state of Michigan, if you look at all the cities where emergency management was placed, i.e. Benton Harbor, i.e. Pontiac, none of those cities are thriving after that emergency manager left. They came in, stripped him of his assets, got rid of employees, and now those cities are hubs for whatever, no police protection, on and on.
I mean, and we don't want to belabor this point, but Darnell, I'm so happy you said that people should be out in the streets. And another thing, you need to hold these politicians more accountable. I can't stand it. I can't stand it to get up and talk a bunch of stuff, especially the Democrats in the state, even though they're outnumbered in the Congress and the Senate in the state. I mean, the squeaky wheel, they can arouse the crowd. I'm a rebel from way back, so right on, Black Power, everything. I did it. I did it. All right, let's talk at GM real quick because we have a long list down here, and I definitely want to get to sports. I love sports. GM, I had this one particular article that I gave you saying, they're in a lot of trouble right now because they recalled these cars, and they had to recall a lot of cars. But one of the things that struck me was they said it will not happen. Said the ignition switch on the 2003 to 2007 recall cars, they're safe if you only use the ignition key. In other words, just put that one key in. You know how on your key ring you got several keys. Well, they said no, just put that one ignition key in, and you're safe. Is that crazy?
What's interesting to me, though, is if you actually read what they said about the study that they did, it actually said remove the key fob also. You go buy a new car, they're going to give you a key with a key fob on it. They actually said in the study, if they remove the key fob, the key didn't move.
Well, the whole thing.
Who does that?
The whole thing's a mess. And the deal is, based off of some reports, that you're not going to be able to sue them because they were under the United States government at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah.
And you can't sue the government,
Nah.
the Fed.
Well, you can sue them, but you're going to be suing the company.
They weren't, not between 2003
No,
and
but
not
part of the deal, it
2007.
was a part of the deal they made that they're gonna. It was a part of the deal they made. You're not gonna be able to touch those guys. You won't be able to.
I'll
Move
touch
on.
somebody.
Breaking news
I would
here
touch
on Table Talk.
I would touch somebody. Somebody's going to get
Somebody's
touched.
gonna get touched.
Because there were people out there, they're holding their signs, their loved ones got killed and everything.
13 deaths. And I'm
57
pretty sure
cents.
they're going to
More
compensate
injuries.
some people, but it won't be at the number that you usually sue a major corporation like this and get millions upon millions of dollars. It's just not going to happen this time around.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, what do you think is going to happen? Because Mary Barra,
Vera.
she had to she had to sit before the Senate yesterday and the Congress the other day, and everybody said she's the fall guy because they knew this was happening, and then they appoint her in January, and she had to
She
find
said she didn't
herself.
know about it.
Yes.
And it's probably, this is the regular type of deal. They're
Yeah.
always going to do this.
Yeah.
The commander is always left off the hook afterwards, and they know about, that they're not going to be. They're probably going to compensate some folks, but it's not going to be at the extent.
Well, if they don't, it's going to be some real bad publicity for them. And not only that, remember,
Do
GM used to be number one, then number two.
you think people care though when they're purchasing a vehicle? Do you think that this story is actually affecting vehicle sales right now? Because the last report that I remember, GM's numbers were pretty robust for the first
Well,
quarter.
this report just came out, so it will affect their sales
On the second quarter.
right now. But they're going to look at those automobiles. What is it, 2000
2005?
to
2003 to 2007.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're not going. They can probably skip over those vehicles and buy their newer models or something like that. The ones that's not affected.
We're talking about a 57-cent piece.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part about it.
Exactly.
57 cents. And plus, Michelle, my producer who's an engineer, said for the next year or something, they did not change what, Michelle?
Part number.
The part number. But they knew that was a defective, they had to know that was a defective part.
That's why they had to do 80 studies to determine if the key came in or out or not. They knew that doing those 80 studies. So if you know that there's an issue, why do 80 studies, which I'm sure cost more than 57 cents, and just replace the part?
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard to believe there.
Maybe the dealerships thought that they'd lose too much money or whatever. Now they're going to lose. I think it is going to have an impact, Chris. I do. Before someone buys a GM car,
Well, I think that
depending on the car.
yeah, I think people become more and more apathetic, and if it didn't happen to them, then it didn't happen in a lot of instances. And whether it's we see on the case as far as with the emergency manager, what's going on in the citizens of the city of Detroit, the auto industry. If it didn't happen to me or mine, then essentially it's something that I read or I see real quick, and then I forget about or I dismiss once it's out from in front of me. And I'd be interested to see, because I really think that people have become so callous that things don't stick with them that long anymore. I think that so much falls off of us that used to stick. We read these accounts of these type of accounts with GM and people die. We've heard it so many times. It really doesn't do the same thing that it once did for us. And I think without the media coverage, people would care even less.
And quite frankly, it's a recall. So they recall on these vehicles to switch out the ignition switch, and they'll call it a day. And people are not going to really look. I don't think the sales are going to be that much of it.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think they'd be affected at all.
my car is under recall. I heard the other day.
And you're going in and go get it fixed.
My car, Chrysler recalled the Jeeps,
Yeah.
and something with the brakes and stuff. And I use my brakes a lot because I'm the side street woman. But anyway, I love that Jeep. So what Chris is saying may be so. Now let's get to Detroit. What is going on? The feds are now probing the Detroit City Council leadership, the vote for
City
Detroit
Council.
City Council leadership.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but the council became an at-large council back in 1932, I believe, because several members were taking bribes. And so they made them at large, gave them all a nice salary, so on and so forth. So over the past, 50 years or so, we've had this at-large council who I believe would represent the members better if they were from a district. Because now if you live down the street from me, your plight is my plight is your plight. If they, my street lights are out, so are yours. It forces you to do something. Also, to the city of Detroit, we need to get out of the popular game. Stop voting for the popular individual. We need actual people who have fresh ideas, something new to bring to the city, some ingenuity.
Well, do you think any of the new members of City Council have that?
I believe all of them have something to offer. I've personally met with Brenda Jones, lovely woman, Councilman Spivey, Councilman Tate, Santil Jenkins. They all have something. I haven't had the pleasure. I met Gabe Leland up in Lansing. So I had the pleasure to meet some of them. And I do believe they all have something to add to the table. But when you have a atmosphere where this type of thing is allowed to happen, when you're talking about bribes, potentially bribing for positions on the board, we have to rise above that. I don't know where it starts, where it comes from, but we have to rise above it somehow. And I believe by getting rid of, and I'm not saying any particular names, and it may have happened this particular election, but I'm saying we have to be able to move and do some more important things than just being stuck in this same
Always
political
being investigated.
rut. Exactly. We got to get out of it. We have to.
I don't think it's gonna happen. I mean, personally, I think that you know, I grew up with dogs, and I'm not nearly comparing politicians to dogs, but I know that if I left a steak on a plate and I left, no matter how much I told them, leave that's for me, don't touch it. When I came back, it might not be gone, but I can guarantee he licked on it. And so I think that the temptation has become too great, and I think that individuals
Their character is flawed.
and I think that individuals are not they're for themselves, their agenda. Some individuals, I don't think that that's all, but I think that to have this notion that we have to rise above, I just don't see that happening. I would love to see that happen, but I don't see that happening. I think that the reason why we have the level of integrity that we have now with a lot of individuals in a lot of cases is because it's policed. And if it's not because people have some type of higher epiphany that comes upon them and they say, well, you know what, I got to do better. No, I think that, scrutiny and policy.
Accountability. That's the word we want. Accountability. It just seems like so many politicians haven't been accountable to anybody, not even the citizens. They felt they could do what they want.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that one. I could say that maybe not in this case. Maybe there's some type of accountability that is coming to fruition.
Well, in
because
this case,
someone-
but I'm talking about in the
yeah,
past.
yeah. And I want to say that this is an alleged type of bribery deal.
Of course.
So it's not nothing. No one's been indicted or anything
No.
like that.
What
but-
got me is they got it from a conversation they heard in Cutter's bar.
Well, I think it was. I believe someone
Great burgers, by the way.
actually. I think someone
Steak
actually
bites.
went to the feds with the information versus them listening in on a conversation.
I'm pretty sure that a lot of people's sentiments are that they understand that there's going to be all this foul play and underhanded dealing. And I've even heard people say, such and such politician, he did the same thing, but at least he kept services going. So people don't even really care, for lack of a better word, as long as they get
Some people.
a lot of people. I think a lot of people don't care as long as they are provided the services and stability that they're looking for. People say, well, I kind of expect it.
But I believe that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
When you say you have
I
to
do.
hold people accountable, and it's
do.
just like the 436 Act. Sorry to keep bringing that up, but
Don't
the
be- don't
reason why
apologize
people,
for that.
the reason why the people are in an uproar is because they getting some of them still getting a paycheck every other week. You know what I'm saying? Some of them still be able to go to the grocery store.
For
so
now.
as long exactly,
now.
and so as long as everything is status quo, they don't have a problem what's going on. And it's not until, and this should give you an example. 1955, they said can't nobody ride the bus. So everybody was affected, so they stayed off the bus. And they got around. I helped you. You drove me. I picked your wife up. I dropped your kids off. We came together as a community and made it happen. What I'm saying today, we need to come together, but we're not, because everybody in their own little world
It's compartmentalized.
is compartmentalized and happy. We tried to stop a store, people from shopping at the groceries, one of the particular store
Yeah,
in the community.
yeah.
They didn't have heat in the wintertime, the lights was off, and they behind the counter with coats on, shivering. But people was going in. But I say, hey, don't send your kids to that store. Don't shop at that store. But where else they gonna go? If I live right down the street, I don't have a car. So I'm saying they will accept what you give them until it actually individually hurts them.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, we lived in segregated communities in which we had to band together. Now we have this new society, and we have all have democratic freedoms, and everyone has a free choice to live now, in the suburbs, in the city, wherever else. So we're all spread apart, and everyone don't feel the same pain.
Exactly.
Well, that's true, and we could talk a little. I started to talk a little more on that, based when I was a child, but that was so long ago, and what the communities look like. But they still had many grocery stores in the community. It's so much less
And
now.
I think the family structure, not to cut you, the family structure has become so loosened. It's just not. I can remember, where my grandparents stayed, and I could walk from my grandparents' house to my aunt's house, to my cousin's house, to my other uncle's house. And I think that if something affected my uncle, it affected my mother, and if it affected my grandfather, it affected his daughter. And I think that now we've become compartmentalized to the point that even in our own families, it really doesn't affect us. If my brother is affected by this public act, then that's kind of his problem, in a lot of people's minds. And I think that it shows that it's even bigger than a political banding together, but there's a social, there's an emotional breach that needs to be talked about, because no one's an island. And I think that we've tested that, and the results are the society that we're evolving into today, where you have many more people drowning than are on solid ground.
Exactly.
We
Amen.
could go on with that. Quickly,
Good deal.
Mark Schauer, who's running, we don't even have to talk about it, but I'll let the people know. He is running for governor against Snyder. He has picked this Lisa Brown for his running mate. And I am convinced that if Schauer doesn't get out here and really do some talking, really doing some advertising, I've seen some of his ads. I just think they need to be more hard hitting. It's just the same old Democratic soft touching. It's not going to work, and he's playing against Koch brother dollars and Snyder dollars right now. But what do you think, real quick?
I know. I think it was a great choice to pick someone. I believe she's from Southfield, Michigan.
Yeah.
She has southeastern ties. She's been a rebel rouser in the state senate.
Yeah.
I mean the state legislators
House.
house, and it's a good choice. She's a woman. She's young.
Yeah, but the thing is, people vote usually for the top of the ticket,
Yeah.
and so that's where I'm concerned.
Well, I mean, I'm saying grabbing someone from this area is going to help him out a little bit. It may be a slight tick up. He has to get. Yeah, you're right. He has to become more visible in the southeastern side of the state, and I think that now he will. I believe you're going to see more
We
of
hope
him
so.
now.
Yeah, we hope so. We really hope so. They say that former Sheriff Warren Evans is considering running for county executive. What do you all think of that?
They also said that Chief Napoleon's supposed to be running.
Yeah,
I think the same thing.
recycled. We need somebody new. It's recycled.
I'm tired.
I don't think he's going to gain much traction at all.
No, I
Right.
don't.
I mean, that was the bottom line.
You have to question people's egos sometimes.
Well,
Oh,
I don't. I think Warren Evans, his last stint as chief of police, right?
Yes.
I think that a lot of folks believe that he was doing a pretty good job, and that that the circumstances that led him leaving that position weren't necessarily due to his performance, but it was due to just some other things that maybe he should have had better
Well,
judgment.
part
So
of that, though, Chris, was his performance and wanting to be there, allowing that camera crew to come, and he was trying to. His ego, to me, has undercut him.
well, I agree with that, but living in Detroit, I can remember that was the first time that I consistently saw police officers walking the beat in my neighborhood. And I think that those are the type of things that, regardless of the motivation, I was just looking at the outcome.
Okay. But he wasn't chief that long.
Well, and that's my point exactly. That it really doesn't take that long. And if some people argue that Chief Craig has tried to have a similar imprint. The debate is still out, but I think that yes, I understand the cry for new blood, the cry for fresh ideas, and I'm not for or against Warren Evans. I just think that if he's qualified, he has just as good as opportunity.
I don't think so. I mean, it's too late in the game for him. He should have
It
tested
is
market a long time ago. It's too late for him. Now, like I said before, another a name just jumped in was Chief Napoleon. And that name may resonate since he just came off of a election run that he lost ultimately, but the name still resonates with the
We
people in the
have
county.
a caller. We have Tom on the line. Good afternoon, Tom.
Hey, how's it going, Tom?
Hi, Brenda. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Hello?
Fine. Can you hear us?
You know what? You're real faint, but I'll go ahead and say what I'm going to say.
Okay.
But in regards to talk, when you were talking about Mark Schauer,
Yeah.
I've seen Mark Schauer at least 5 times, since around about sometime last year. I'm an executive board member of the 14th Congressional District and the Wayne County Democratic Black Caucus. And he has been to our meetings. And I just heard him on the radio dial at 1200 a.m. And there was I guess it was like an hour interview with Attorney Bertram Marks. So, I mean, he's making the rounds, but, I mean, you got to consider this. Michigan is a big place, all right? It's not small. And I understand that, the majority of the Democratic votes are here in the city, okay? But, he's got to get up to, as I call it, where the rabbit jumps over the mitten and to the Upper Peninsula and everywhere else. And I think that he made a very, very good choice in terms of his running mate because, like the woman said, when they wanted to question her credential, she said, if you look at it, she said, I got more experience than Snyder had when he announced his running. But let me say this. In that commercial where it says the shower's over, when the shower's over, there's a pot of gold when that shower's over. And, hope to God that we can go ahead and get rid of this man called Governor Snyder because, I mean, as bad as Governor Engler was, I mean, he's making Governor Engler look like a choir boy. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go because I can't hear you all. So thanks for taking the call, Brent.
Tom, okay. I was going to say, I'm trying to get Schauer on the show. I've been trying. I tweeted him back the other day. I don't even think he sent the tweet. I said, I want you on my show. But anyway, we got to move on through real quickly. Vince Gregory, who was running for the 14th district congressional seat, he has dropped out. And do you think? I wonder if he thinks that Brenda Lawrence may have it all sewn up. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think it's an open race now between Lawrence and Rudy Hobbs. Now,
well, what about? I like Maurice. I can't say that. Maurice Morton is running. Bert Johnson is running.
names won't resonate. I think Rudy Hobbs and Brendan Lawrence are going to be the top 2 tickers. And I mean, those are the folks that's going to have to rally against.
What do you say, Rudy Hobbs?
He's a young, vibrant individual. He has that young situation going for him. Then he has experience with the state legislature, and he's feels like he wants to run. So
I've known Rudy Hobbs for like 14 years.
He has and he has a lot of Democratic endorsements also.
Yeah,
that
but
too.
I just he doesn't
both
know.
Levins, Carl
I
and his
don't
wife.
think they know enough about Detroit, honestly. And you
Lives in
have
Southfield, doesn't he?
yes, but he doesn't know enough about Detroit. I've
Brenda
heard him.
lives in Southfield too.
I know all the candidates personally, and I'm just saying that when I listen to them speak, I don't hear enough about. You can tell when people have a knowledge of the city, and I don't hear that. I hear the knowledge of general topics, but a knowledge of Detroit, which is the biggest part of their map, political map. But let's go on. I'm going to be having all of them on my show, most of them on my show. But I really, I know all of them at least. I don't know any of them under 10 years.
Okay.
So I know them all and history.
It's a no-brainer.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I just happen to. Don't say that. Oh, anyway, everyone. The minimum wage. I did want to talk about that, but we could get on that next week because that is a hot topic with me. The minimum wage, and then my nightmare job is being a restaurant worker, a waitress, and they only get $2 and something an hour, and they have to rely on tips. That's why I tip well. And the old fire department headquarters is going to be a boutique hotel. How nice. Well, let's get to some of the social issues because we only have 10 minutes. Time goes by so quickly. But Kobe Bryant made some comments. Does anyone want to speak to those? Well, gee. Kobe Bryant made some comments after the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat players, had donned hoodies after the Trayvon Martin trial, after George Zimmerman was exonerated and all of that stuff. And Kobe Bryant made some comments. And his comments, he thought that they should not have done that. He didn't like the Heat's photo. And he says, I want to say it correctly. I won't react to something just because I'm supposed to, because I'm an African American. That argument doesn't make any sense to me. So we want to advance as a society and a culture, but say if something happens to an African American, we immediately come to his defense. Yet you want to talk about how far we've progressed as a society. Well, we progressed as a society. If we progressed, then don't jump to somebody's defense just because they're African American. You sit and you listen to the facts like you would in any situation, right? So I won't assert myself.
I think that the comments that Kobe made were inappropriate, and I think that he would have been better off not saying anything. And I think because Kobe Bryant, for one, isn't a outspoken individual, and so for him to consciously speak out on this matter, which one is a very sensitive matter, two is a matter of interpretation, in my opinion. Because when I saw what the Heat players did, I saw them banding together and really, kind of showing some type of making a statement for a young child that had lost his life. And so it's kind of like a memorial to remember the life of Trayvon Martin. What I did not see, them, throwing darts at Zimmerman's face or anything like that. And so I think that, while Kobe Bryant is entitled to his opinion, I think that he really, assumed a lot of things with regard to the Miami Heat players and also their actions. And so, again, I think that when you take into context that Kobe Bryant doesn't say a lot about much, he's relatively an introvert as the NBA is concerned. He off the court, he tries to keep his life private. For him to speak out on this, and as sensitive as a subject, he hasn't earned the right to or through consistency to really speak on this. And
well, and his upbringing was quite different. His father played pro, right?
Exactly.
And he was brought up in Italy or somewhere. He was brought up overseas. He did not have to walk through the streets of urban America like so many of these other black men.
I just think he was just hating on the Heat.
yeah,
Seriously, I think
Who
that's
doesn't?
the bottom line. He
Who
was
doesn't?
just
Say who
hating on
doesn't?
the Heat. He saw those
That's right
guys
up his alley.
once again, not only winning the championship, but they went back and showed some solidarity for a young
Totally.
African American boy. He was out of line, definitely out of line. No one asked him for his opinion. In fact, they didn't make a statement. They just showed. They made a statement. They didn't make a statement verbally. They made a statement of solidarity
Yeah.
by showing them with the hoods on. We're standing for Trayvon Martin.
Right.
No one asked for Kobe's opinion. In
He
that.
shouldn't have said
No.
anything. I agree with you.
I don't want to.
Russell Bird used to tell me, this is my grandfather, by the way, he used to say, be careful what you say because your mouth will get you in trouble. You dig? So, Kobe is a habitual dime dropper. He dropped a dime on Shaq. No, in all seriousness though, there was really no need for Kobe to go out on this one. What I was trying to find out was, did they ask him about Trayvon, or did he just come out and say, hey, you know
who
what?
came out?
And see, it was really no need for it. I understand what he was saying though. You're right. Everybody should be based solely on each incident. Those guys wearing the hoods, the Heat wearing the hoods, those guys come from the inner city. Those guys live in actual Miami, where the stand your ground law is prevalent. So they made a statement. Hey, that could have been me. I could have been walking down the street. Exactly. And so And that's what everybody was saying by representing by wearing a hood. That could have been me. And I think Kobe went a little bit outside of that and made reference to something else. And when he tweeted, hashtag colorblind, hashtag dime dropper or something,
Yeah.
I don't know what he said.
Listen,
but,
listen,
Dive dropper.
this is the thing.
Gotta hurry, Chris.
And we've received confirmation that Kobe Bryant has watched this show a couple of times, and so
Hey, Kobe, you can't
You-
call us. And
Kobe,
tell
feel
us
free
what
to call in. You got my cell. Hit me up. But I think that this is a classic case of a guy becoming a grumpy old man, and I think that I almost don't want to say it because him and we're right there. So if he getting old, then but what I see someone looking for something to say about this team, looking for and if it wasn't this, it would be something else. And again, it's unfortunate that it would be such a sensitive topic like this. But if I could say anything to Kobe, I would just say you had a good run. We got a seat open, rotating seat. When Darnell's not here, you can come on Table Talk, and we can just hash it up here on Table Talk.
We only want you to speak about things you know about. Okay. Also, let's get down to the final two rapid fire questions. Who is going to win the NCAA championship?
Wisconsin. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Robert.
I will go with Wisconsin.
I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say Kentucky.
You got to stick with the Big Ten. I mean, I remember as a kid,
Why?
if the Pistons didn't win, and I remember teams used to say, keep it in the East. Or, and so there was some loyalty. So it's like,
Some type of loyalty.
Yeah, some type of
Right.
loyalty to
I
your.
was a Laker fan if Detroit didn't win.
I can't really root for the Lakers or Boston or Chicago. But if Michigan
Not
State
overly
or Michigan doesn't win, I would love to see the champion come out of the Big Ten.
It's
Well,
gonna
next
be a
time-
battle. It's gonna be a battle for certain.
Right.
You
it's
got
gonna
four
be a
great
good game.
teams.
And next time, I think Michigan State needs to come to play. But anyway,
Say folks brackets are so messed up right now. We don't
well,
know who's gonna win.
Dayton,
Nobody got the $1
University
billion.
of Dayton messed up the brackets
Yeah,
initially.
they
Yes,
destroyed 'em.
my son's alma mater. Okay, who should be the Pistons' new coach? I felt so when I watched Tom Gores
Terry Durant.
hug the old bad boys and stuff. I know he was saying, "I wish you were younger and you could be here." But anyway, who should be the new coach? What is your opinion?
Bill Lambier.
I've heard Dave Bing, former Mayor Dave Bing, is interested in the job, but the cry is that they don't think it would see much change. So I think that we all respect Dave Bing, what he did for the organization, but based on his track record, you might not see too much change.
And I've heard of things being routed around about even Isaiah Thomas coming in.
Oh, no.
Taking over
Oh,
that
no.
spot.
Well, they recently had
It's mean.
the Bad Boys reunion, and I was able to come out there and see the players that inspired me
Yeah.
to play ball. And I think that there's a talent pool there. I think that Bill Lambier.
Isaiah.
Bill Lambier's there. Isaiah had a riff with Mr. Davison.
Well, it's not only that, Chris, and you're young, and I respect that. Isaiah has some issues dealing with team. I mean, he has some issues. He can get mean. He could be polarizing. And right now, we need a coach that can bring people together.
Yeah.
I think Bill Lambier is a good choice.
I think
He
he
won a
is, too.
championship with the WNBA. He had 1 year with one of the professional teams. It escapes me right now. But I know he has the passion. I would love to see Bill Lambier get an opportunity, if not with the Pistons, someplace in the NBA. But I think by him, retiring as a Piston,
Be a good fit.
I
Coaching the
believe.
Shock to a couple of championships, I believe.
Yes.
Or maybe one championship with the Shock. I like Avery Johnson too. I think that Avery Johnson kind of can piggyback on that whole hard work. Avery Johnson wasn't a highly touted player, but he was referred to as an emotional catalyst on those championship teams that the Spurs had. He's taken a team to the finals with Dallas. So I think again Avery Johnson, and with the young point guard that they have in Brandon Jennings, I think that Avery Johnson brings something totally different to kind of expose him to leadership. I think Brandon Jennings is a phenomenal talent, but I don't see the leadership on that team or in him that maybe Avery Johnson can kind of share with us.
Is Avery on the market right now?
I
is
believe
that one of the
yeah,
candidates
I
you're
believe.
interviewing
Well,
right
I don't.
now, or-
Openly, they haven't said it. I'm just thinking of pulling names out the
Okay.
hat. I think Avery
Well,
Johnson would have been good.
I kind of agree with Darnell that Bill Lambier would be great just for the morale of the whole community.
Bring the Pistons to Detroit. That'll be good for the morale. Bring the Pistons
You are
to the
young
city.
To remember when they played in Detroit. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. I'd like to thank my co-hosts and Chris and Robert and Darnell. Thanks for guesting with us
Table
today.
Talk with
I
Brenda
always
Perry.
love your input. I
Table
hope you
Talk
can come
is
back
Detroit's
again
only
soon.
talk show.
Thank you for the opportunity. I had a great time, as
Oh,
always.
join us next Friday. See you then.